All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first live Q&A session. And hi, everybody. I think I actually started recording or thought I was recording earlier. Welcome to the first Q&A session for the Supreme Sound 2.0 course. I'm super happy to be here with y'all and answer your questions. I love reading your questions and answering your questions. And I want to apologize for running about 5 minutes late today. I was here to set up all this equipment by myself here at the office at the headquarters. And it took me a little bit to find the Wi-Fi and the password and all that kind of stuff. So thank you for being patient with me and for being here with me. So let's get started. We have lots of similar questions, and then we have different questions as well, and I'll do my best to address all of those to the best of my ability. And then also just know that if your question doesn't get answered on this Q&A, we do have another Q&A coming up next week as well, and that I can get to your question there more than likely. And also, if it is a question that has to do with more techie information, like the technical aspect of the course, where's the box to put the questions, or, is there 11-minute versus 3-minute exercises, stuff like that, you can always email support@jaidevsingh.com and ask them those questions, and they can help you with those. All right, so let's get started. This is from Tracy in Barcelona. Hi, Tracy. I'm really glad to hear from you. We will be in Barcelona this fall, actually, my band and I, in September, and we're going to be playing a concert there, so I hope to see you there. Your question is, hi, how would you include Sat Kriya into the series in Module 2? Thanks. Well, the first thing that I would like everyone to know is that each of these exercises and kriyas and vocal exercises and affirmations and things like that in this course are designed to be able to use them on their own or in a series with everything I've given you. You can use Sat Kriya any time of day, as many times as you want. You could do it for as little as 1 minute, but ideally as little as 3 minutes, and you can do it up to 62 minutes if you want, or longer. But and it works really well if you use it consistently. So how to add it into the series in part 2, you add it wherever you want. But what I do suggest is that you first start with, anywhere from, 3 to 6 warm-ups. It doesn't matter. And then after that, you want to do your Sat Kriya, but it's always good to tune in first. It's always really helpful to tune in. You do your warm-ups, and then you do Sat Kriya after that. So you can add Sat Kriya into any part of the series. It doesn't really matter where it goes. You can do it before vocal exercises, after. You could do it in the morning, in the afternoon, and at night. It doesn't matter when you choose to do it, just do it and do it consistently. Best to do these practices in the early morning hours, but it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't matter. Just do it. That's the main thing. Just do it. And you're going to notice a difference no matter what time of day that you do it. Okay. I hope that answered your question. This next one is from Alizi, Alizi? I'm not sure if I'm saying your name correctly, from Prescott, Arizona. This is a very sweet question. There's a question within this. Before I ask the question, I just want to say thank you for putting this together. And I want to say you're welcome. It's my pleasure to do this. I know that I get so much out of it personally, and that I've heard from so many people around the globe that they've gotten so much out of this course. And it's a pleasure and an honor to share this information and these teachings with you all. So I'm glad that it's really helping. Okay, so you're saying that you've struggled with moving from the head to the heart, especially when singing. You saying, I find myself overthinking and overanalyzing how it sounds rather than being fully in the heart. What would be your suggestion to help with that? Okay, so this is part one of the question. Moving from the head to the heart. Sometimes it's a lot easier said than done, especially if we're thinking about things in our practice. And I've been in that place too. And everyone that practices is going to be in their head a little bit when they first start to practice because they're just learning the techniques and the teachings and things like that. It's easy to be like that when you're in Kundalini practice as well. Sometimes you're like, oh, wait, am I using the navel? Am I breathing correctly? Am I saying the mantra correctly? It's really easy for us to get into the space of overthinking it. And that's why I like to really stress that it's important for us to practice on a consistent basis so that we don't have to think as much anymore. So it's normal for us to be thinking in the beginning of the practice phase where we're just learning the exercises, just learning the kriyas and things like that. It's totally normal. But the reason we like to practice the kriyas for more than 3 minutes, ideally, and things like that, at least 11 minutes, in my opinion, is because it does take a few minutes to get out of the head. And then once you start doing the kriya for like 2-3 minutes, you start to notice that the energy drops down into the body and you're not thinking as much. You're in this rhythmic pulse of the kriya. And it really takes you, and you're not thinking anymore. You're just inside of it. And every once in a while, yes, the thoughts come in. Of course they do. But you let the thoughts come in, you recognize them, but you don't hold on to them and you let them go. You know what I mean? You don't have to entertain the thoughts and you don't have to feed them. You just allow them to be there. You watch them, especially during the Kriya. We have a mantra usually to focus on, or the breath, and you keep the focus on the mantra and the breath. You allow the thought to be there. If you try to push the thought away, then you're starting to think again. You allow the thought to be there, you watch it, and then eventually it goes. And then sometimes another weird or funny or interesting thought comes up. And then that's there. And it's the whole thing is just because that there's thoughts coming in the mind doesn't mean you're thinking. You can be in a space when there's thoughts moving through the mind where you're actually observing and you're not thinking mind mode. Does that make sense? That's something that a lot of people think when there's thoughts coming in their mind in a meditation that they're thinking and they're not in their heart space or they're not in a neutral space. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Actually, what I've experienced in my years of meditation is that when we do a kriya and the thoughts are coming up, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're doing the thinking. It means that thoughts are coming up. And the whole point of meditation is to be able to observe the thoughts and not attach ourselves to them and not think that the thoughts are always coming from us, not attaching to them and identifying with the thoughts, being able to watch the thoughts and be the observer. That's the whole point of meditation, because as long as we have a mind, as long as we're in this body, we're going to have thoughts that come through, and not all the thoughts that come through us are from us. I mean, so we have... There's so much subconscious that we're floating around in. And, it could be from the people next door that you're picking up on some thoughts, or it could be from some energy from some group that maybe your magnetic, your frequency is kind of magnetized towards, or it could be from some movie that you watched or something. It could be from anything. It could be from you. But the thing is it doesn't matter where the thought comes from. In the meditation, what's so cool is we're in a mechanism in a meditation that allows us, it's like we're almost like we're in a machine. And the meditation allows us to have this rhythmic machine that keeps going no matter what thoughts come up. And then what happens in the meditation, as long as we're focusing on the breath, if there's a breath focus, the mantra, and as long as we're doing our best to keep the posture straight and as focused as possible, what happens is that machine keeps going and we're able to digest those thoughts, take what we need from them and let the rest go without us having to think about it. We're just observing it. They just come up and they pass. They come up and they pass. They come up and they pass. And sometimes there's no thoughts. Sometimes we're in a thoughtless state where we're completely in this what we call a zero state, a shunya state. And sometimes that happens. And then, hey, we're in that space. And then 5 minutes later, some more thoughts come. And it doesn't mean, oh man, my meditation's not going good, or the Kriya's not going good, or when I'm singing, the song's not going good because I had some thoughts come through. It doesn't mean that at all. And then there's times where you do the meditations or when you're singing that sometimes there's no thoughts whatsoever. You're just completely in a different space of, the music is completely playing you and taking you over. And that's beautiful too. But it doesn't mean it's more powerful than the other space. It just means that, and that time that's what's happening. And then the other time that's what's happening. It doesn't mean because you have thoughts coming through that you're not in a meditative space. Like I said before, keep in mind the meditations and the Kriyas, and even during the vocal exercises, they're designed to help us move through these, help these thoughts move through, and to move through these emotions so that we don't get attached to them, so that we process them in a really healthy way and digest them in a really healthy way, and in a way that we don't even have to think about it. It's really, really simple. And so just allow the thoughts to be there. Remember when they come up, hey, that's not necessarily me. Who knows if it's me or not? It doesn't matter. Just let them, watch them like a movie screen. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's kind of bizarre. That's funny. Or you don't even have to. Sometimes I don't even have those thoughts of that's bizarre or that's interesting. They just go through and I'm just watching them. And really the eye of the meditator is the eye in which sees these things and just allows them to pass. It doesn't put any kind of stigma on the thoughts. Okay? I hope that answers the first part of that question. And now we're going to move on. And then that goes with singing too. So yes, the second part of this is what can you use to move through the head to the heart. Well, what a beautiful thing to do is to be able to use the head to access the heart. We have to use the brain. So one really helpful tip for that is if you use a picture of something that brings a feeling into your heart, like that physical, sometimes tingly feeling, sometimes that feeling of that warmth in your heart. I mean, whatever that feels like for you, I know that what it feels like for me. And so I can only describe what it feels like for me. But those feelings that you have in your heart when you feel that thing, use a picture if you need. Sometimes when I'm playing a concert and I'm singing, I put a picture of my son on there. Sometimes our dog, because our dog is 100% heart all the time. And that's the beauty of having an animal around like that, is they're always in that space. So, seeing a picture that reminds you of that will bring you in that space. A teacher that brings you into that space, that brings you into that feeling of that devotional space. It could be, a priest from your religion, or it could be your husband. It could be anything, that helps you go into that space. Sometimes looking at things. That's why we have pictures of teachers sometimes. Sometimes it's helpful to see those pictures to remind us to get into that space. Do we need to have a physical altar? No. Do we need to have pictures of our teachers? No. But why do we use them? They serve as tools, as gateways into the heart, as gateways into the feeling, as gateways into the meditation. So do we need them? No. But do they help us sometimes? Yes. So they're helpful. And, like I like to say is, remember that your body and your space, the entity that you, this entity that you are, this space that you inhabit, your electromagnetic field, your being, you are an altar. So the way that you conduct yourself and the way that you carry yourself, the way that you dress, the way that you project yourself, where you're projecting from, all of this is your altar. All of this is your picture that you can see, that get you in so you don't need it physically. But so the tools that I'm giving you are things that help you to get into that space. So yes, pictures are very, very helpful if you need them. Sometimes even listening to music. If you can listen to music that puts you into that heart space. And we talked about this in the course. There's various places where people are coming from in their music, whether they're singing or not. You can feel when they're coming from a heartfelt space, because if they're coming from a heartfelt space, you'll feel it in your heart. You can feel when they're coming from a lower energetic space, like for instance, when they're coming from like a root chakra space and they're more, or a sexual space. You can feel that because you feel it in yourself when you listen to it. It doesn't mean that you take that on, but you're aware of it and you can feel it. And we know how to be aware of it now with the course. So I'm glad you asked this question, because it really, really helped me to unpack that a little bit. Use pictures, use whatever you need. Look at the color pink if it helps you go into the heart space. Look at a picture of your teacher. Have a picture there in front of you, or of your son, or of your dog, or of your husband or wife, or whatever, your best friend. Any kind of tools like that that help you are really, really, really great to use. I mean, there's no discrimination on what you can use and what helps you get into that space. And everyone has something different. Also, what helps you get into a heart space is doing your practice, doing your meditations, doing your kriyas and stuff like that. So whatever it is that you can do to get into that space, do it. For me personally, a picture helps if I can't get into the space. Listening to a song where I really feel that heart-centered spaciousness in the song, where I feel that vibe where it goes into there, into that heart space, or practicing a meditation, even just for a few minutes, will help me get into that space of neutrality and the open heart. Okay, and there is a third part to this as well. Okay, the third part here is, ironically, one of my blocks is the fear of expressing my voice fully, especially when in session with a client or around other people. Have you ever experienced that kind of fear? If so, what has helped you move through that fear? Everyone experiences that fear from time to time, whether it's more superficial or more deep-rooted. Everyone does at some point in their lives, and then they learn to break through that. Once you learn to break through that truly, usually that block does not appear as a serious block anymore. Most people on the planet have a very serious block in this area in the throat, and this is why a lot of people have thyroid issues. This is why a lot of people have issues speaking their truth. This is why a lot of people, this blockage here goes along with having a fear of what people think of you. It has to do with the throat chakra, because you have a fear of being accepted. You have a fear of not being accepted. You have a fear of what people think. There's a lot of fear that comes from this area. Most fear comes from this area, the throat chakra. So it's really important in this life that we learn to heal that. And this is why I'm very passionate about sharing this information with you. Yes, it's about singing in the voice and chanting. It's also about overcoming this fear, being able to recognize when it's there and not allowing the fear to take over our actions. So the fear is there. I experience fear regularly with my art. When I put my art out there, that's very, very common. And the difference between the fear that I experience and sometimes the fear that someone else experienced, or the fear that you're talking about that debilitates you, is the fear that I experience is my friend. I welcome the fear. It becomes my lover. I don't let it debilitate me. I welcome it, and I welcome what the message is. The fear brings a message. And then what I do is I don't allow the fear to dictate my actions. You see what I'm saying? So I hear the fear. I let it say its piece. Sometimes it runs its course with some images in my head. Oh, what if I did this? What would happen? Da, 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 da. But I don't attach myself to it. That's the reason we do these kriyas and these meditations. It's a life practice, because these things come up in our daily lives. I don't attach myself to it. And then I do my best, to say, okay, I'm going to do this despite of this fear. I'm going to wear this headdress despite of what some people might think. I'm going to sing it this way because this is how I'm feeling despite of what these people may think. When you truly embody that, then the fear doesn't have a stronghold over you anymore. You're able to say what you feel. You're able to be more honest and clear and direct instead of having to feel like you have to sugarcoat everything, and then things become really slimy in our communication when we do that. So with that said, what has helped me move through that fear? Sat Kriya, breath of fire, consistency with this practice, singing, chanting on a daily basis, whether it's with a melody or whether it's Ekonkar Satanam Karita Purkha Nirbhav Nirvair Kal Murita Ajuni Saphangur Parasad Jap Ad Sach Jugad Sach Happy Sach Nanak Hosi Peace Sach, repeating that over and over until I feel a space of neutrality come over me. Just working with yourself, and not allowing the mind to take you over and that kind of thing. Okay? So that's why we give you these practices in this course. We give you these practices so that you can help yourself overcome these feelings of fear. So you're allowed to feel those things, which is so natural. If you didn't feel fear ever, I would be a little bit concerned, Well, if you didn't feel fear, maybe you have a false sense of confidence. Maybe you have this false ego thing going on here that's not serving you in your life. Fear is your friend. It's a helper. It's a guide, okay? It's a guide. It's a friend. It's not a scary thing, but it can be scary because we were trained as a young child to think fear is this big monster. It's not. It's a friend. It's not a foe. It's a friend. It's a friend as long as we don't allow it to dictate how we live our lives and what we do. It's a messenger, okay? But it doesn't have to be a messenger of truth. It's a messenger. Just put it that way, okay? So we do the meditations, we do the vocal exercises, we do the affirmations, and the more that we do these things, hey, when I feel funky in my mind, Ekonkar Satanam Karita Purkha Nirbhav Nirvair Kal Murita Ajuni, I repeat that over and over and over until all of a sudden I don't feel that thing anymore. It's past. I'm allowed to just observe it now instead of feel like I'm a part of it. Okay, cool. I think I've answered the 3 questions that you had in your one your one question had 3 parts. I think that I addressed that and more. So we're going to move forward. Okay. Hi, this is from Satsangikar. I started doing this Kriya after the last 40-day challenge ended, and I'm doing 3 minutes a day, which is great, and 3 minutes of Ego Eradicator, which is the aura charge. Rock pose is very painful for my knees, and often I have to switch to easy pose about halfway through if doing it more than a few minutes. Why does this Sat Kriya make me sweat? Okay, that's a great question. First of all, it's totally fine if you have to move your posture and you have to end up in an easy pose. There's an ideal, and then there's also a real. So let's just be real about things. If you have to, because you're not going to finish the Kriya, if you do it in rock pose, if you have to sit in easy pose, get into easy pose. Someone did ask me, this is going to address another question. Can you sit in a chair with flat feet on the ground? Yes. If you're going to sit in a chair while doing these exercises, flat feet on the ground, I suggest that you take your shoes and socks off, and at least you be barefoot with your feet on the ground. Okay. And then, of course, when we're doing these Kriyas and meditations, it's very good to take your socks off because Yogi Bhajan, the master of Kundalini Yoga that brought all these incredible teachings to the West for all of us to empower ourselves, he said that wearing socks when you're doing these meditations is like wearing earplugs when you're trying to listen to music. So you want to take your socks off and be barefoot when you're practicing, if at all possible. But if you're in the snow somewhere and you need to wear your socks and shoes, do the meditation with your socks and shoes. It's not about being dogmatic, and it's not about being so tight about the practice. It's about letting the practice work for you, okay, in whatever situation you're in. So sometimes I practice Breath of fire when I'm getting ready in the bathroom, and I'll do breath of fire for like 10 minutes straight. And maybe that's my breath of fire for the day. And then at night before bed, I do my Sat Kriya. And then I do my vocal exercises before I eat dinner. I mean, it's not always in one chunk. I have a very busy schedule. I work a lot, and I have a family to maintain and take care of. And we have a baby puppy and a household and all these things. And I'm saying that because all of you that are here have the same things. You have families, and if you don't have a family, you have jobs, or we all live here in the world, and we're busy people. And this practice is designed for people with busy lives so that they can achieve the results of someone that could be living in a cave, or so that they can achieve the results of a practicing, musician. If you're into the music aspect of it. So these exercises, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck with these exercises. So yes, it's okay to put your feet on the floor if you have to do that. Ideally, you're sitting in rock pose, on your heels in Sat Kriya. But either way, it's going to be good and effective for you. Why do you sweat in Sat Kriya? Is that normal? It's totally okay to sweat. I sometimes break a very light sweat in Sat Kriya. And when I do that, it's because you're working your navel center. And so you're also moving the Kundalini energy. You're directly stimulating it, and very quickly too, from the base of the spine to the skull. So in that sense, you're moving a lot of energy. You're working your navel. You're going to sweat. And that's very, very natural. And no worries about that. It's a very healthy thing. Okay, so this is another beautiful question about, excuse me. Okay, this is another beautiful question about opening the throat. Simrit, can you please give us some more advice on opening the throat? That was the main reason I took the course. No matter how many lessons I had in the past, it seems my voice gets tight and drawn in. I can feel my throat pulling in instead of releasing. Okay, that's a great question. And the best way that I can address that question is that you're not using your throat to sing. So you have to remember that. And a lot of people think that the sound originates here. It doesn't. Actually, the sound and the power of the sound originates in the navel area and in conjunction with the diaphragm. So we want to focus the beginnings of our sound at the navel. That's where we want to start. And it's more than, yes, that's our springboard, and we want to project the energy and this and that. But I'm talking about just in your physical practice, you want to utilize this area as much as possible. And another thing is you want to open your mouth as relaxed as possible. So we use this 2-finger distance that I talked about. That's just like this. So for everyone, it's different. We don't want to strain and be like this. And we don't want to be like this. The more you do these practices of the more you do these trills and rolls, the more this is going to become more relaxed, and the more the sound is going to be able to come through here more freely. Give yourself some time and be patient with yourself. I will tell you, it took me months to get relaxed in here. Months. When I first started learning these kinds of exercises, it took months. It doesn't happen overnight. Some things you'll notice will happen overnight, but it takes consistency and it takes some time. So be patient with yourself. Can you wait? Can you be patient? That's the question. There's not an overnight pill, magic pill that you're going to take and all of a sudden everything is just completely 100% readjusted. You have to work with yourself, and that's why we give you the meditations and the exercises and the kriyas and the affirmations, because the meditations and the cat-cow that we do, for instance, and the ego eradicator, the aura charge, the neck rolls, all this stuff helps to relax the body so that you don't tense up in your throat. All the mantras that we chant in here together help you to remember to loosen up and that you're not the thoughts that you're thinking. We tighten up in our throat because we get scared. It's a fear mechanism. That's what we do when we get scared. We tighten up here, even if you're not talking. Have you ever had those dreams where you feel fear and something's gripped onto you and you can't, your voice gets clamped up and you can't speak? You're like, it's the same thing. It's the same thing in this dimension. The same thing happens. When we tighten up in our voice, it's a fear mechanism. So there's some fear mechanism that's working you. And I guarantee you it's an old pattern that's been happening for many, many years. And I guarantee you it goes back to your childhood. So that's why we do these meditations. That's why we do these kriyas, because they help to dislodge that fear out of the system and they help it to pass through. However, sometimes it doesn't happen overnight, but you have to have consistency with these practices. Sat Kriya is really amazing for the voice and for projection and for the throat, because it directly stimulates the Kundalini energy from the base of the spine to the skull, and it also balances the chakras. This chakra is imbalanced when there's fear that's got a stronghold over it. So Sat Kriya is going to help to balance the navel, which helps to balance all the other chakras, and it's going to help to move the energy more fluidly and freely up and down the system. So Sat Kriya, consistently, breath of fire. These vocal exercises I give you are also designed to loosen this area up, dislodge emotional crud that gets stuck into the tissues, and also help you to move the sound freely. When you practice these vocal exercises regularly, and when you practice the cat-cow, the aura charge, the spinal twists, the Sat Kriya, and all these other kriyas and meditations that are in this course, you will notice a difference, and you will notice a major difference. But the key here is consistency. It's not once a week. It's not twice a week. It's not 3 times a week. It's more like 5 to 7 times a week. Okay. Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. But to close that last question, what I want to mention is this. When we use the voice, the sound in the air has to go through the throat. We do have to use the vocal cords, and then we have to strengthen the vocal cords. And I've given you the exercises to do that will help you majorly strengthen your vocal cords and will help you to remember to breathe properly, which is another big thing. Your voice will clamp up if you don't have breath. That's why breath was one of the 7 secrets of the Supreme Sound when we started the free series here, because breath is majorly important. So when I'm talking, you're hearing me breathe a lot. It's very important that I'm mindful of my breath when I talk. So just remember all of that, the breath, the navel, the exercises, everything that we've talked about. It will help. It takes consistency, and give yourself some time and patience. Okay, this is an interesting question. So this is a question, and they're saying, I really appreciate sitting with women and having a softer experiences with these practices. Thank you. You're welcome. I thought that was part of the question, so that's why I read that at first. My question is, can you go deeper into the meaning of Satnam? Satnam is so deep that we can't talk about how deep it is. Sat, if you try to put it into a word, it means truth. Nam means identity. What is identity? Identity is way more than the physical presence. I mean, physical presence is a very shallow way of saying, well, this is what identity is. You could say identity is that, hey, I'm Greek, that's my identity, but that's really surface level stuff. That's not my identity. That's not truly who I am. I could say, hey, I'm a woman. Yes, that's like worldly identity stuff. But what Satnam does is it goes into there It goes into the system, it goes inside of us very deeply, and it helps us to feel our true identity, which is much more than the mind can conceive. It's not a woman, it's not a Greek, it's not these clothes, it's not a turban, it's not black hair, it's not any of that. We think that's our identity. It helps us to relate to a certain way of being sometimes when we utilize these tools, but that's not who we truly are. So the Sat Nam, what that does is it goes beyond the mind, and it actually helps us to feel it viscerally and helps us to understand it on a visceral level, not on a thinking level, on a feeling. We feel who we are. We feel our identity, which has nothing to do with this pink shawl right here. Has nothing to do with me being a singer. Do you see what I'm saying? Has nothing to do with me being a woman. So this is what Sat Nam does, and that's the deeper meaning of Sat Nam. Sat Nam is the deeper sense of confidence that we carry in ourselves. That's Sat Nam, and we cultivate that, and we start to touch that when we do these practices on a regular basis, consistency. And that's when we realize on a deep internal level what Sat Nam is. Sat Nam is not something that I can tell you what it is on a deeper level with words. It's a feeling that you feel, and it's an understanding that you have when you do these practices and you spend time with yourself, and you have this feeling of emptiness almost. You feel yourself in a very different way than what's just here. You know, this skin, these bones, this muscle. That's all superficial stuff. It's very important to work with it. It's very important to learn how to live with it in this life. It's very important to know I'm a woman. It's very important to know that I come from Greece. I'm Greek. That's very important for me in this life. It's very important to share this information. But what we really are doing with Sat Nam is we're going beyond all of this, and we're getting into what's really important in this life and what's really beneath the surface. Okay? And that only you can know about what Sat Nam is for you. Okay. And then something, I think this is part 2. I am definitely a truth seeker, so it seems strange that I don't enjoy chanting Sat Nam. I have an issue saying it out loud. I'm definitely a truth seeker, so it seems strange that I don't enjoy chanting it, but my whole being resists it almost every time we come into the end of the practice of a course during Sat Kriya. Is this something that occurs for beginners? No. No. I want to tell you that when someone comes to me and they're saying Sat Nam and it's really cheesy and it doesn't have any substance, I don't like it either. I don't like when someone tells me, I love you, sister. That doesn't feel good either when they don't mean it. But when someone tells me, I love you, and I love you, and you know they mean it, it doesn't feel cheesy, does it? Or when someone says, Sat Nam, and they mean it, and there's no cheese with it, it has a different feeling. Now, if you don't enjoy saying it, and it feels cheesy to you to say it, there's 2 routes you can go. You cannot say it. Just don't say it, just feel it. Know what I'm saying? Or you can say it and say it and say it over and over and over during Sat Kriya. Or you can chant it in the car, Satanam, 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 and stop thinking about what it means. The mantras are not about what does this mean. They're not about meaning. Mantras are about feeling. Okay? It's all about feeling it and becoming one with the sound. It's not about thinking about what it means. We sometimes like to know what does this mean because it helps us. It's like the picture. Knowing what the meaning is another gateway into the mantra. But we don't have to know what it means, okay, to understand it. Does that make sense? We don't have to know what a mantra means or the translation of a mantra to understand it and to feel it and to get the benefit from it and to become merged with it. So just use it as a sound. Think of Sat Nam as a sound. Get into the mechanics of it. Sat, Use the pronunciation to get you inside of the flow of the sound of it. Nam, Sat Nam. And don't think about it as something that we say to say, truth is my identity. That sounds kind of cheesy, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. Don't think of it like that. Don't think of it as something that has a meaning. Think of it as a sound current that you want to vibrate with. And use the pronunciation as a tool to get inside of the flow of that sound so that you can experience these deep and incredible spaces inside yourself. You see what I'm saying? That you cultivate true inner confidence in that way, that you aren't afraid anymore to say what you speak or to say what you feel or to say what needs to be said. You don't care what people think about you. You don't. You just don't anymore. You don't like the way I dress? Cool. You don't like the way I sing? I don't care. You think I sing nasal? You think I sing high? You think I sing low? You think, do you think Bob Dylan minds what people think? He doesn't. He just does his thing because he's freed up there. And I don't know how he got there, but he may have been born that way. And maybe he got there just by practicing it over and over and over. And eventually he's just like, hey, there's something here. I want to work with it. Know what I mean? So with Sat Nam, don't think about it as a meaning. Truth is my identity. That's a very, very elementary way of thinking about Sat Nam. But yes, we say that, yes, this is what Sat Nam means. Truth is my identity, because we have to relate with it on some level. That's a tool to get inside of the actual sound vibration of it, which is what we're really here to do with the sound. That's what we're really here to do with the music. That's where we experience the deep healing with our voice. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. We're not relating with Sat Nam as a vocabulary definition. We're relating with Sat Nam as a sound vibration. Sat Nam, Sat Nam, Sat Nam, Sat Nam. Just use it like that and get inside of the sound. It's deep. It's deep, not the word itself, the experience of it. Okay? All right. This is a good question. Do I have to remain in a seated pose for all singing? Heck no. You could be standing. You could do whatever you want for that. Is there a right way to sit? One leg keeps falling asleep if I'm sitting for very long. No problem. Stand up. I stand up and sing. I sit when I sing. I do vocal exercises standing most of the time. Most of the time I do not do my vocal exercises sitting down. Most of the time I sing sitting down because I'm playing my harmonium and everything. Sometimes I sing standing up. The main thing to think about with posture is this. Straight spine, chin slightly tucked in. You don't want to lift your throat, this for high notes, because eventually that will blow your vocal cords out and cause a lot of strain and tension. You want to, when you're going for a high note, remember we talked about in the course, think about an elevator. There's a pulley system. The high goes up, the elevator goes up, but you have the heavy weights going down. Now just think of energetically of the high note like that. So, like, your high notes are going up, but your throat's not going up, your body's not going up, you're still, you can do those high notes. You get better high notes when you sit like this anyways. So think of that straight spine. We want to remain hydrated as much as possible. Mouth is open and relaxed. Our breath, the throat, we're not moving the neck up or keeping the neck straight. These are all great techniques to create a higher quality sound and to run better sound through you. Not only that, but to prevent yourself from blowing out. So that's the only thing I have to say about posture. You could do that when you're standing up or sitting. Okay. When we're doing the Kundalini yoga exercises, however, I do want to mention in the Kriyas and meditations, they are specific to sitting if I'm sitting, if that's the way they're taught. But like I said, if you have to modify and sit in a chair, you can. But you just wanted to mention that. Next question. Could you please explain the difference between a harmonium and the Shruti box and how they can be used to develop our voice? A Shruti box has less keys on it, is very small. It's very similar to a harmonium in the sense that it's also using bellows to pump, and it's a reed system. So the sound is coming through reeds just like in a harmonium. There's also stops, these knobs that you pull out that create different tones and sounds, and also drones that sometimes are constant. If you choose those particular stops, you have to learn your instrument. The difference is the size, in my opinion, and the shape, but they do the same thing. They're basically the same thing, different size and shape, just not as much range in the Shruti box, not as many keys, and it's a lot lighter. So, and then how they're used to develop the voice, just like any other instrument, you sing with it. The thing I like about the harmonium in the Shruti boxes is that you can help yourself you want to make sure they're in tune. So, because if they're out of tune, you want to make sure that, so for instance, if this is a music thing here, so just bear with us if you're not into the music thing here, but if your harmonium's tuned to 440, you want to make sure all the keys are in 440. If your harmonium's tuned to 444, like mine is, you want to have your harmonium tuned, or make sure it's tuned to 444, and then you just hold down a key and you sing with it, you tone with it, or whatever you do, and then go to the next one. Just move up one key to the next. You can go from white key to black key to white key to black key if you want to do a chromatic scale, which is half steps, or you can do all white keys, which is whole steps, or all black keys, which is whole steps. You could do whatever you want, but to train the voice with the harmonium, I suggest that you hold a key down, sing with it, for as long as you can, and try to keep that pitch without wavering. And believe me, you're going to waver at first. It takes practice to get there. And then when you're just about to run out of breath, not when you fully run out of breath. Remember, we talk about that in the course. When you're just about to run out of breath, then you take a breath and you're holding that key down with the harmonium, and then you keep going. And it's great to train yourself with one note, and to train yourself to hold that note out as long and as steady as you can without vibrato. And then you can add some vibrato to the end. So this is getting to be really technical at this point, and we can go into this in another Supreme Sound course where we get really technical with this stuff if there's a demand for that. But yes, you can use the Shruti box and the harmonium in this way, and you can sing with it. It's beautiful. It's got a drony sound to me. It's very inspiring to sing with a harmonium, almost more inspiring than any other instrument for me to sing with because of the drone. And my harmonium in particular is very warm and smooth sounding. It's not a choppy kind of staccato, nasally sound. It's a very warm sound, and I really love that. And that is inspiring for me to sing. Okay. Which would you advise for a novice who has never played with a musical instrument before to start with? Yeah, either one, harmonium or Shruti box, doesn't matter. Piano, doesn't matter. Choose something and see what you resonate with. It could be any instrument. It could be a drum, anything. See which one you resonate with, though. Okay? Okay. Hello, Simrit. If we are to do all the kriyas and meditations of each module, would you recommend a specific order in which we should practice all of those? The only order that I recommend but is not imperative is to do some warm-ups before you do your kriyas. It doesn't matter which modules you start with the exercises. You could do all the module kriyas together and exercises together. It does not matter. You could start with 4 and go to 2, then do 1. You can mix and match them. The only thing that I suggest is starting with a few warm-ups before you get into your kriya, because it helps you to go into a deeper space in your kriya, because it gets your body warmed up and it gets you already aligned into a space. And then the kriya, you get that much deeper, that much faster. So I suggest starting with warm-ups. Okay. Okay, someone is saying, I have a question about how you position your hands while meditating. Do you use different mudras? So mudra is a word for hand position. So it's like this or this or this or this or this, whatever it is, you know what I mean? Or this is the mudra for Sat Kriya. It depends. There's some meditations that require specific mudras, like Gyan Mudra, or in Sat Kriya, you hold a mudra like this, or it just really depends. The mudra for aura charge is this. I mean, your arms aren't bent like this, you know what I'm saying, but your hand position is like this, and this is aura charge, stuff like that. Unless specified by the meditation on which one to do, then I would just, choose your own, what feels good. When I'm meditating and there's no specific mudra recommended, I choose usually Gyan Mudra, which is just the thumb and index finger together. I choose sometimes hands in the lap like this with left over right with my thumbs touching, or I just sometimes put my hands down on my knees. I mean, whatever feels good to you. But if they are specified, which you will know in this course, in the Kriyas and meditations, where the mudras are specified, unless they're specified, you can choose whatever you want. But when meditating, if you're sitting up in easy pose, usually, you could do a mudra where your hands are on your heart, or in prayer pose like this. But a lot of times people will have their hands up, like facing up like this on their knees, and Gyan Mudra, which is the mudra that activates the wisdom energy inside of us. Okay? Oh, let's see. We're almost done here. Oh. Okay. Someone asked me, this is Dell from Australia. Nice to see you here. I'm glad you're here. I play guitar. It's a classical style, rarely strumming. Question: as the guitar leans at the navel, how do you overcome shortness of breath with notes that need length rather than power? I have learned to regulate my own timing, but need an exercise to overcome always being a solo performer, or should I not change? Okay, and question 2 is, I rarely use amplification and am often asked not to project so much when it feels so true to me. Should that be worked on? On gigs, it is often said, do not put a microphone near Dell. Okay, first of all, Dell, I'm going to address this and say, you are the performer. You do what you want, and if they don't like it, then you don't need to be there, or they don't need to be at your concert. It's you that dictates what goes on at your concert, because you're welcoming people into your den. Do you know what I'm saying? Wherever you are. So with that said, you dictate what you do. If you want a microphone, then you use a microphone and learn to work with it. If you're like piercingly loud in the microphone, turn the volume down or have the sound guy work with you if you have a sound man. If you're running your own sound, then you deal with that accordingly. Have someone out in the audience, or not in the audience, but have a friend or family member come and do a quick sound check with you beforehand. But you dictate what you do with your performances. Secondly, which was the first question, how do you overcome shortness of breath with notes at length? Okay, shortness of breath. This is something you have to work on. It's called breath control. And what we do, and what I've learned over the years from my teachers, and what I'm continuing to cultivate now, is breath control. And that's a very important thing for someone that's using their voice as a singer or a speaker, whether you're a teacher or anything like that. Breath control happens when you're, like I said earlier, when you're holding out a note for long periods of time. That's a great way to learn breath control. Just practicing daily, holding out one single note, and before you run out of breath, taking a deep breath, and then consciously every day trying to stretch that out a little bit more. But what we do with breath control is we don't push all of our air out in the beginning of that note. It's not like Satnam. It's Satnam. So I'm regulating, and it becomes less of a thinking thing after a while. You just do it naturally. I'm being conscious of and I'm regulating how much breath I'm letting out at one time. So I'm doing it evenly throughout the whole thing instead of doing, I'm going to try to make this really loud. I pushed almost all the breath I had out to make it super loud like that. And then I'm going to run out of breath more quickly because I pushed most of my breath out to make it louder in the front. Does that make sense? Like a lot of people try to do that, but then they lose their power. So the power becomes in the same with meditation and in life and in general. It becomes with a steady, just like this. And that's how it is with singing too. The power isn't about, let me do it, blah. I mean, if you want to do that as a dynamic technique or something, that's cool. Or as an artistic, something, that's cool. And I do that sometimes too. But what I'm saying is it's about the steadiness of the sound. So that's something you could work on, is holding out a note. Start with 5 seconds, and then next day go to 6. The next day go to 8. Try that. I like to hold out notes for 20 seconds if I can, to 25 seconds. That's a long time. And normally in my performances, I don't hold them out that long, but it helps me when I do perform to hold a note out for 10 seconds. Do you see what I'm saying? Because when I'm performing, I'm like in the energy, I'm moving around, I have a lot more going on, there's people there. So I'm not usually holding a note out for 25 seconds, but I do it in my practice so that I can hold it out for 10 seconds or 15 seconds in a performance. So it's really good if you can practice with the note, with a one steady note, and learn not to put out all your breath in the very first moment of that note. Learn to have it more even keel. And then you'll be able to work with volume dynamics in it as you move. But it's a steady practice with that for me still, after many, many years of a lifetime of singing. And so it's a steady, keep it a consistent practice for that with breath control. Let's see, just a couple more questions here. Okay, someone says, I deal with a lot of throat blockage. That is the reason I took this course. I have worked on my voice tirelessly and accepted it. However, it goes hoarse and blocked, which makes communicating difficult. Can you please offer me some more advice on projecting and strengthening my volume? Yes. I just talked about that previously in this question with breath control. You'll learn that when you free this energy center up more, you'll have more projection naturally. You'll work with the navel. This whole course is designed to help with that, inside and out, with the yoga exercises and with the vocal exercises and with the meditations and kriyas and stuff like that, and with all the informative teachings and the things that we go through. So all of this course is designed for that. Consistency is key to all of this. That's the biggest tool you're going to have to reach your goals with any of this stuff. So another thing I want to share is that everyone has a different voice. Everyone has a different timbre, which is the kind of like, is it clear? Is it kind of that kind of like, I don't know how you describe it, like that kind of like smoky voice. I don't have a smoky voice. I don't. I wasn't born that way. So I'm not going to try to make myself have a smoky voice. I'm going to accept that I have a very clear voice. And then this is the kind of voice that I'm working with. And this is the kind of, I have a, you can work on the tone of your voice and refine that, but you don't want to get out of the natural flow of your sound. You don't want to try to convolute your sound to make it sound unnatural and make it sound like someone else's. Like there's this thing that's going on in the world right now where everyone wants to sound like they have an Adele style voice. I've heard this so many times. You hear it on all these singing shows and stuff. It's like half the people there have the same style and timbre in their voice, and they're like working so hard to sound like this Adele style. It's a style and it's very transient. When you use your voice, when you use your natural voice and enhance your natural voice and work with your natural sound, that's called a classic sound, and it's timeless and it stands the test of time. So when you're trying to have a style like somebody else, then you're really shooting yourself in the foot, and you're also cheating everyone else out of what they could be getting from your unique sound. You're cutting the soul out of your own sound. Yeah, you might still have a little soul, like, oh, she sings soulful, but what I'm saying is you're cutting the experience of your authentic sound out of your voice, And you're cutting that experience out for yourself and other people that have the ability to be healed by your sound as well. So it's like you're really cheating everyone out that way. So my suggestion is work with the kind of voice you have. Some people have a very soft voice, but it still can be very powerful. You learn and you cultivate it. You might be able to make it a little bit louder in volume by using these exercises. But the first things first, accept the type of voice you have and improve on that voice. Don't try to change the voice that you have. Do you see what I'm saying? Don't try to change the style or the timbre. Let your voice be what it is and just refine it. Use what you have and work with what you have. And that is the biggest gem that you have. That is the biggest gem when you hear someone like, I'm using Bob Dylan again. I'm using Bob Marley here too. Bob Marley and Bob Dylan do not, they were not even trained in voice. They just sang from their heart. They just sang from their inspiration. They didn't care what people thought of them, and that's why they're so magnetic. I mean, they just got inside of the sound. It healed them. So they did it because it was their healing. And then that's why so many people respond to that. They're inspired by what they're doing. You have to give yourself an experience first and foremost in order for anybody else to get an experience from you. Do you see what I'm saying? So give yourself something inspiring. Inspire yourself with your own unique sound and just experience that deep healing that occurs over time. And you look back in a month, you look back in 6 months, you look back a year from now, and you're like, holy moly, my life is like, I'm way more confident. I've noticed that I'm not afraid to speak my opinions, or I'm not afraid to speak what I feel, or I'm not afraid to stand up for somebody in public that I don't know, or that I notice that I don't mind what people think about me anymore. That kind of stuff. It's a really a cool trip. I think we have one more question here, or maybe possibly two. I'll get to this. I think we just have... Okay, we already talked about that. Set Kriya on the flat foot on the floor. And I actually think that's everything we have today. I think I got through everything in just an hour. So that's amazing. I'm really glad that I got through everything in an hour. There was another question on there that I thought I had, and that was a technical question. And like I said, when you have a technical question, send that to support@jaidevsingh.com, and our amazing team can help you there with those kind of technical questions. And I just want to express my gratitude for being able to be here today with y'all, for you showing up here, for sending your questions in. I'm really grateful that you're having these questions and these, self-inquiries about what's going on. That's normal, that's natural, and that means that something is working when you have questions, and that when you come up with blocks, that means that something's working. So this course is designed to help us move through those, to see those thoughts and not attach to them and let them just go on by and enjoy life for what it is, and not always get attached to all the little details, because sometimes it's so easy to do that, isn't it? I just want to also say thank you for taking this course and taking this deep dive with yourself. It's a very profound experience, and I want to encourage you to continue on a consistent basis. Consistency is key. On a consistent basis with all the exercises and kriyas and meditations and everything. All right, I love you all, and I'm really, I'm just really honored to be here and be your guide through this. Please send more questions in if you have them. We're going to have another Q&A next week, and I look forward to reading more of your questions and doing my best to address them in the next Q&A. And this has just been such a joy for me, and I'm just going to close this thing. Goodbye. Have a beautiful day. Sat Nam, and see you next time.